A pleasant day to you all, and welcome to another episode of Jim's Magnificent Miniature Motor Cars. It's a nice, chilly Saturday morning as I record this, and for this episode, we'll be doing yet another head to head featuring the 1/64th scale Ford Mustang GT4 by Tarmac Works against the 1/64th scale Ford Mustang Shelby GT500 by Mini GT. Now, I know this isn't what you would call an apples to apples comparison because these are not identical models. Sure, they may come from the Mustang family, but even in terms of their real cars, Ford pursued very different directions with these two cars. The Ford Mustang GT4 is obviously a race car. Okay, it's not a road car. It's got a number of visual differences from the Shelby GT500. So it's not entirely fair to compare the two, but well, I'd been itching to compare them for quite some time, and I had also been itching to get my hands on Tarmac Works' version of the road car, the Ford Mustang Shelby GT350R, which unfortunately has never reached my shores, and which by now is apparently selling for quite an inflated price on the secondary market. So it's a bit out of my reach right now. Okay, that said, okay, when I first unboxed each of these cars, each of them got a 10. And I don't regret that. I don't take anything back. Okay, in fact, it's because they both scored perfect scores, at least in my opinion, that I thought it was worth comparing these two. I mean, essentially, the GT4, okay, as far as castings go, is, by and large, the same casting as Tarmac Works' Shelby GT350. Of course, there are differences to account for the fact that this GT4 is a race car. I mean, just look at the vents on the hood alone. Then you have differences like the interior and whatnot. But this front fascia is very much lifted from the GT350R. Okay, it's at least based on what I can see or what I have seen online. So who did it better? Like I said, it's a tough call because these are not the same car. And even if I were rating the Shelby GT350R versus the GT500, they still wouldn't be the same car. So it wouldn't be an entirely fair comparison. But I guess the question here is who did it better? Who gets the quote unquote better 10? Who did a smoother job of replicating the car? Because like I said, I admire both cars. Although, funnily enough, I spent an inordinate amount of time during the Ford Mustang GT4 unboxing talking about the packaging and not the car itself. Well, to be fair, the car itself really is a beaut. I mean, you can see here. Okay, I noticed I have a bad habit of obscuring the cars with my hands, and for that I apologize, folks. See how I can remedy that in as I film these videos. Anyway, but basically I've been moving the cars around so you can see them from various angles. It also dawns on me that during the unboxing of the GT500, you did not get to see this glorious front fascia. Okay, so who did it better? Well, I'm gonna say this much: the GT500, if you look at it, it has much more defined lines. I mean, like it reproduces the door lines, the hood lines, and these wheels look so much sharper. And you have to remember these don't have brake assemblies. They're not ultra detailed. I mean, they are detailed up until a point. Okay, and given this specific level of detail, I think the GT500 really maxes out what's available, under this price point. And contrast that to the GT4, okay, which, well, its hood lines aren't quite as clearly defined. There's, well, the rear wheel offset is not quite 100%. Not taking back my 10 though. And, well, ultimately, it doesn't feel quite as sharp as the GT500. Plus, there is the material point to consider that the GT4, even though it's a global, aka cheaper version of the Tarmac Works cars, it's still retailed for something like the equivalent of $18. Okay, versus the $9 that I paid to get this Shelby GT500. So basically, the Shelby GT500, even though it's easily more detailed, is cheaper. Okay? Now, I know this may be down to the marketing team and not the craftsmanship, but remember, these cars, the pricing is always a consideration when ranking these cars, especially when you have, when you have two very similarly situated cars. I mean, I'm not exactly comparing a Tarmac Works to Atomica here. These are rivals. Tarmac Works and Mini GT are very much competing for the same market segment, so it's fair to evaluate each against the other based on price. And this Mustang GT4 happens to cost nearly twice as much as this Shelby GT500 did. Okay, and even if I was a little bit on the fence, which I'm not, the Shelby GT500 basically wins out. This Shelby GT500 would still win out by virtue of the price. Okay, but the good news, even though this is the better 10, the Shelby GT500 is the better 10, is that at the end of the day, we collectors still win out because both cars are awesome. And that's it for this head to head. I hope you enjoyed it. And as usual, I challenge you, okay, to give me a like and a subscribe. You know you want to. And you know also that I'll be back with more content. Stay tuned.